to the latest Movie Guys podcast, just 2 weeks old, covering every single Harrison Ford movie in his career. One per episode. Now, it would be a bad time to jump off a bridge because we're about to enter the Ford Fiesta.
That's right, we want to watch every Harrison Ford movie that he's ever appeared in, so why not make a show about it? I'm Paul, never tell me the odds, Preston.
And I'm Adam. You said you wanted to be around when I made a mistake, and this might be it. Wit. That's right, we're covering every Harrison Ford movie. So if you're joining us here on episode 2 of the show, you're going to be a world of, what the hell is this? In terms of Harrison Ford movies, we're still well away from American Graffiti and close to a year from Call of the Wild.
So if you're wondering how Harrison Ford spent his early years of his career, wonder no more. We're going back to 1967 with his second major motion picture, the Jack Lemmon, Peter Falk pair-up comedy, Love. That's L-U-V if you're ever looking for it out there in the world.
Right.
Some quick housekeeping. Of course, please chime in your thoughts at themovieguys.net or The Movie Guys, at The Movie Guys all over social media. Check out the vast Movie Guys archives and give us some likes. We're about 75 subscribers away from 1,000 on YouTube, so help us out there and hit the alerts bell to receive immediate updates when we throw some movie nonsense up there.
I can arrange that.
And if you're like we were a week and a half ago thinking to yourself, what the hell is Love about? We've got your answers coming up in our patented Movie Guys recap of the movie. But first, what's new in the world of Harrison Ford? Paul?
Well, you know, there's not much in the world of productions that he may appear in that's new, but James Mangold, of course, we announced will be the director of the new Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
We'll call it Indiana Jones 5 for now. He may have, this is how the internet is. It's like, there's no Harrison Ford news, so we'll make some. Maybe he said where the new Harrison Ford movie is going to take place, because he tweeted out something about the Velvet Underground, and he just loves the Velvet Underground. And he said in this tweet, "Note, I'm mentally living in 60s New York City right now, because that's where all the movies I'm working on take place."
Uh-huh.
Well, look, timeline-wise, if you're jumping ahead from where Crystal Skull took place,
right?
You're in the 60s. He's got some sort of history with New York, the character does, I believe, right? So there's all good reason. Of course, it's all conjecture, but there's plenty of good reason why the next Harrison Ford-led Indiana Jones movie could take place in the Big Apple.
Is that near Pittsburgh?
I mean, how cool is that? I mean, you think of like Last Crusade, he goes to a city, he goes underneath, what is that, Venice? He goes underneath the city. There's all these mysterious secrets under Venice that aren't really under Venice, but of course we live in America, so we assume that probably there are tombs underneath Venice right now. There probably aren't. But hey, New York, 60s, like adding some mystery of what's maybe going on underneath the city there or in the city. Oh, man.
I did go to one of those catacombs in Italy where they've taken the bones of dead people and just decorated the place. Millions of them.
Oh.
Well, maybe not millions. Thousands of them for sure. Maybe even 100,000.
Oh, rats.
Skulls and bones and just making this crazy artwork decorating all the doorways and walls and of this whole tomb catacombs.
So Chainsaw Massacre, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where you expect to find Indiana Jones. So I'd be curious to see if there's any of that under New York.
But there's going to be some globe trotting. Obviously, it's in Indiana Jones, but yeah, I mean, some of it's going to take place in New York City.
We think. But that's the extent of the news. But of course, you can always Google Harrison Ford news and just see what you get. And this week, it got these exciting headlines. Harrison Ford gets a bike rack installed in his car after purchasing a brand new two-wheeler in L.A. So
sweet.
He bought a bike.
Oh, no, he's going to crash that two-wheeler. Shit. I hope he's okay because, the guy that invented the Segway died on the Segway.
Yeah, is that the new way for a guy in his 70s to potentially kill himself now? I always thought it was a plane, but maybe he goes out on a bike.
I mean, the guy's crashed like 3 planes and a helicopter and walked away.
Yeah, no, the bike's not taking him out. And he purchased it at Helen Cycles in Santa Monica. Imagine just going to Helen Cycles because, hey, I need to get a new pump. And then there's Harrison Ford buying a bike.
I'm looking for a two-wheeler, some sort of scooter.
Harrison Ford waited over 2 hours to receive his first dose of COVID-19 vaccine in L.A. County, which is, he's the demographic to get one, so he got his first one.
And he's royalty. I mean, it's like, has the Queen gotten hers? I mean, Harrison Ford's gotten his now, because that's the royalty in America.
That is correct.
And again, you're just behind Harrison Ford in line waiting for your shot. Hey, yeah, crazy, right? Like, how do you strike up a conversation with Harrison Ford? Yeah.
Yeah. I loved you in Love. I think that's probably what the person behind... Hey, so in Dead Heat and a Merry-Go-Round, here, answer me a few questions.
You really triggered the plot there, didn't you? I think it was just a one-liner, but... and my favorite thing is Harrison Ford almost gave up show business after working with Jim Morrison.
Yes. When I put together the calendar of all the Harrison Ford dates, I came across the fact that he was briefly a roadie for the Doors. And in a famous documentary concert, he was given the second camera and shot a bunch of the Doors concert.
Yeah, but you read that headline and you're like, oh no, did he did you have such a horrible time with Jim Morrison that he almost gave up showbiz? Nope, just the opposite. He got roped in. He's like, I could be a rock star. I could handle time on the road with a band. But
go live on a commune is what he said in the interview. It was like, yeah, I thought of actually leaving everything, going off to live in a commune because everybody that I was around was doing that sort of lifestyle. And I was like, well,
everything we need is here.
He really bought into it, really loved it.
And that's not even a current interview. So why this is jumping the top of your Google responses, who knows? But I'd rather see him there than know the latest about, Ariana Grande.
So after last week, we talked about there's all these photos of Harrison Ford shopping in grocery stores, and we made fun of it. And I actually looked up some this week for potential Ford news, and I could look at photos of him shopping all day. I mean, I really spent a lot of time. And maybe I was avoiding editing Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round, but I mean, I could just look at him picking out bread all day. And he's still Harrison Ford while he's doing it.
But he's got to get the right butter, right?
So I've got to get the right butter.
I'm thinking about it.
Maybe I want margarine, and he's got to figure that out.
Do you have parquet?
Well, you mentioned this date in Ford history, so let's get to it. All right, so we're recording this in the last week of January, so let's pick some important dates from end of January, beginning of February throughout Harrison Ford history. And this is a good one because this was when he was awards fodder for a spell. And January 31st, 1987, Harrison Ford is nominated for a Golden Globe for The Mosquito Coast.
Right.
Which seems right, because it seems like a Golden Globe nominated movie, more than an Academy Award nominated movie.
Absolutely. I mean, and of course, we're going to see this in his career as we continue, that, he became big box office success. And then, every actor, once they've hit that first goal of like, okay, now I got to make some money as an actor. I got to be in a hit. Now it's time to go for some street cred, some credibility, some awards, And
February 2nd in 2006, Firewall is released. Now, this is a movie that we saw, but probably have to re-educate ourselves about if we're going to be competing in this movie trivia schmoedown, because no doubt any Harrison Ford question would probably be about this, just to try and stump you.
Yeah, Firewall is one of those ones where when I approached you about this project, I was like, I am not a Harrison Ford completist, and it's largely that 2000s movies of his. Firewall is a classic example of like, I couldn't even tell you what Firewall's about.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No.
Oh, you
haven't seen that? Haven't seen Extreme Measures? I mean, I really don't think I've seen
Extraordinary Measures. You did it again. Last week you asked me to clarify the difference between the two movies, and you did it again.
Oh, my God.
No, but here's Extraordinary Measures released in January, and now Firewall released in February. So, yeah, you're right. This is a time of his career when they weren't all the big 4th of July and Christmas blockbusters. He gets back there again,
But like all of America, you may be asking, what's love got to do with Harrison Ford's career? Well, if you don't know this film, and chances are you don't, we'll try and help you out with our patented Movie Guys recap.
Love begins with an end. Harry Berlin is contemplating suicide on a New York City bridge. But Harrison Ford doesn't play Harry Berlin, or you would have heard of this movie. Instead, it's another legend, Jack Lemmon. Also, he doesn't kill himself as someone comes along and convinces him not to jump, and it just happens to be an old friend.
Convenient.
His friend's name is Milt Manville, played by Peter Falk, who takes him home to meet his wife Ellen, who is introduced with a great piece of Elaine May comedy, a chart depicting how little sex they've had.
You will notice that at the beginning of our marriage, the red horizontal line hits the blue vertical line at the rate of some 15 to 16 times a week. But as the marriage progresses, this becomes less and less and less, until a period that starts some 18 months ago, after which the red horizontal line does not hit the blue vertical line once.
Wackiness ensues, which I believe was the working title of the Murray Schiskell play this movie is based on. In an altruistic move, Milt convinces Harry to cozy up to his wife so she won't be alone after he leaves her for his mistress. Other wackiness includes the trapdoor in Milt's living room floor, under which is an antique stash. Then Vandergist and Dalrymple, two antiques enthusiasts, come over in the middle of dinner to rummage through his bric-a-brac, and nobody even looks at this weirdness except Harry and all the people watching the movie.
We meet Milt's side piece, Linda, who, in order to meet Hollywood's 1960s cultural exploitation protocols, is doing the hot new fitness thing, yoga.
You know, for kids.
Harry and Ellen go to Coney Island, where they kind of suddenly declare their love for each other. She then pulls a knife during a teacup ride to kill herself when she realizes Milt is having an affair. This is all to remind you that this is based on a play.
But that's not what this movie's really about. For our purposes on the Ford Fiesta, this movie is really the story of a poor beatnik in a convertible Pontiac who is backed into by a Volkswagen Bug in the hands of Ellen's erratic driving.
The driver, incensed, leaves his car, smacks the Volkswagen, says hi to Ellen, and punches Harry in the face. That raging beatnik is played by none other than Harrison Ford. We'll discuss the scene in entirely too much depth in our guest segment.
But first, quicker than a blackout in a play, Harry and Ellen are suddenly married and boom, they're in Niagara Falls, where they play an improv game one-upping each other to prove their love called What Can I Do to Make You Leave Me? Hello and welcome to What Can I Do to Make You Leave Me? Who do we have with us here today?
Harry Berlin?
Hello, Harry. First question. If I stomped your feet, would you leave me?
Ow! Oh!
No.
Okay, but what if I need you in the nuts?
Ow! Oh!
Nope.
However, what if I ripped your shirt?
Well, that was comical.
And if I cut your suspenders?
My pants fell down.
Wah, wah. You know, stopping the improv game for a second, this confirms the long-held belief that there are two places where people just always have large scissors on them: Bugs Bunny cartoons and plays.
Is that right?
Anyway, after all this testing of one another, it turns out they're perfect for each other. They're both miserable assholes. So Ellen and Milt divorce in another game of improv one-upsmanship called How Bad Was My Childhood? Hello and welcome to How Bad Was My Childhood? Who do we have with us here today?
Okay, for this one, can we just play the clip?
What did they used to feed you for breakfast? Glass filled with 2/3 water and 1/3 milk. Coffee grounds, that's what I got.
You were both lucky and you didn't know it.
Lucky. Did anybody ever call you a bastard?
A relative or a stranger?
Well, here's something the play can hang its hat on. This reminds me of a comedy bit about the Four Yorkshiremen done by Monty Python years later.
I had to get up in the morning at 10 o'clock at night, half an hour before I went to bed, eat a lump of cold poison, work 29 hours a day down mill and pay mill owner for permission to come to work, and when we got home, our dad would kill us and dance about in our grave, singing Hallelujah.
And while we're enjoying Monty Python, covered by Falk and Lemmon, retroactively, I guess, did you know this sketch was also done with Alan Rickman and Eddie Izzard? I mean, there's no bigger joy than hearing Alan Rickman deliver Monty Python lines.
We used to have to get up out of the lake at 3 a.m., eat a handful of hot gravel, and then work 20 hours a day at the mill for tuppence a month, and then Dad would beat us about the head and the neck with a broken bottle if we were lucky.
And you try telling the young people of today that, and they won't believe you.
The takeaway here is there isn't much that feels like love did first, but maybe this?
The movie cuts to 6 weeks later and everyone's miserable. Harry won't get a job and can't eat breakfast without his paper hat. In Milt's marriage, Linda won't get out of bed surrounded by chocolates and bonbons.
This is one newspaper comic strip treatment of the human condition. Is this adapted from the Lockhorns or Andy Capp?
Lockhorns. If you want to know what it feels like to watch love, I offer the following plot point. While Harry turns the trapdoor basement into a doctor's office so that he can go to medical school, Ellen and Milt reconnect at a bric-a-brac shop and decide to remarry, which is convenient because Linda decided to leave Milt when Vandergist steals the chaise lounge she was sleeping on.
We have a client who wants a chaise longue.
Then, Harry gets a job in Tracy's department store as a Charlie Chaplin short in which the tramp gets a job as an elevator operator. Milt's new ex-wife, Linda, happens to be shopping there and crushes Linda in the elevator with his ineptitude. Sure, it sounds horrific, but in the next scene, the coyote was fine.
To play and not enough sitcom? Well, next, Jack and Chrissy try to set Harry and Linda up together at a Japanese restaurant, not knowing he'd almost killed her. She screams, he panics, and goes blind, screaming the best line in the movie, "Man wasn't meant to travel vertically, we'll never make it to the moon."
Eventually, more stage play antics bring everyone back to the bridge, where a murder turns into a suicide into an accident in which everyone eventually proves their love by jumping off the bridge. All four jump and survive falling from the bridge, which is 0 for 6 in being a good suicide option in this particular story.
This might be the type of movie people complain aren't made anymore, but they're probably not thinking of this. They're probably thinking of something more like Midnight Cowboy. And that's Love, everybody! And that's your recap of Love. Probably not a recap for you, because chances are you've not seen this movie, but we did that work for you.
Now
You're
you
welcome.
don't have to see the movie Love.
That we're going to discuss ad nauseum, though.
Yes. Oh, and who is that voice? Why, it's our guest. We asked someone else, a friend of ours, to see the movie too, who apparently we don't like. And he is a movie guy and a many times participant in all of our craziness. And self-proclaimed Harrison Ford fanatic, and we'll show you just how in a second. It's Stephen Lewis,
welcome
everybody.
to the show. Welcome
Stephen
to our
Lewis.
brand new show.
I'm excited to be here. You guys are discussing Harrison Ford in a level of depth of his career I did not expect.
Now, normally, a show would have on a Harrison Ford expert who's authored many books, or perhaps a Harrison Ford co-star or crew member from one of his films. We bring Steve on because, well, he's gettable. Also,
he's willing to watch Love.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's all you could get on short notice. But, in addition to all that,
he has talent, and this is a good carnival trick or something, right? Maybe this is a Venice boardwalk thing where you could make some money doing this.
Some money on this.
If you were to play Stump the Lewis, I guess you could call it, where you tell Steve a year. Now, is there a framework for these years? Is there any year in Harrison Ford's career?
between the years of 1980 and 99, there is a Harrison Ford movie for each year, one and only one. So between those years, you can name the year. I can tell you the Harrison Ford movie that came out that year. Also the Woody Allen one, but we won't go there.
Puts out one movie a year too, right?
Exactly. He's continued to do it, but Harrison Ford kind of stopped at a certain point.
Well, I think the funniest variant is to name the year and have you name both the Harrison Ford movie and the Woody Allen movie. That's what makes me laugh.
I can do that, but I'll defer to Paul's wishes on this one.
What would this show be titled if it was not the Ford Fiesta, but a show about Woody Allen?
It would be called Orphan Annie Hall because he likes them.
That's why he's broken his streak recently of one movie a year.
He's been broken. No, he hasn't. You still can list for... Woody Allen still does one movie per year, regardless of anyone wants to see it or not.
No, make a 2020 film.
I
think he went to Amazon with Wagon Wheel, with Wonder Wheel, and then I don't think we've seen him since.
That might be the first year he didn't release one. But I'm always shocked because I think he stopped making movies, and I look and I go, oh my God, he made 5 movies in the last 5 years? Like, what are these?
Anyway, this isn't a show about Woody Allen. Although...
1983.
Return of the Jedi and Zelig.
Here's where I don't give my money to Stephen Lewis, the Carnival Barker, playing his game out on the street. Okay, 1987.
I was just explaining this one to Adam. Harrison Ford had no movie released in 1987. However, he had 2 that came out in 1988. One which was held over from 87. So I count Frantic as being in 1987, and Working Girl is 1988. It came out in the winter of 87.
The spring of 88. But this is where this is where big money's. This is where my dollar is on the line with you.
Presumed Innocent Boulevard. And Alice.
Well, now you see why he's here, to talk about the movie.
1986.
The Mosquito Coast, Hannah and her sister.
There we go.
And the Woody Allen connection will not be completely irrelevant once we get into discussing Love, which includes Elaine May and has a lot of that Jewish angst, you know.
All right, well, Love, not a prestige pick, a what's the word? A bomb of the time. I mean, a lot of people called it a bomb.
It seemed like a quickie.
The talent
right?
involved.
It's shot like Brady Bunch.
Now, I know very little of the production history of this movie. I do, however, know that the play it was adapted from and based on was quite a sensation in its day. So that we're talking about from 1964, Love, directed by Mike Nichols, hot on the heels of his humongous success with Barefoot in the Park, Neil Simon's first play, starring Alan Arkin, his first major Broadway thing, his first stage thing of any kind after having left Second City. And so the play won Tonys for best play and best script. So a prestige project on Broadway. I don't know anything about the history of the development of the script, the movie script. In fact, until Adam gave me the link, I didn't even know it existed. So
that's the fascinating thing that the Ford Fiesta will reveal to you, is that these movies exist. I was in a production of Love back in the 90s. I played Milt, and I still didn't know it was a movie. I didn't know it was a movie then. Of course, back then, there was no jumping on the internet to try and find.
You would have to find this out from a
Love.
conversation with friends or something, and nobody's going to...
But I'm amazed I never heard of this cast being in a movie before.
Right.
Jack Lemmon, Peter Falk, and Elaine May are all individual, true bright lights of well, let's say a certain type of comedy. And I never knew, well, that either of those two were in a movie as a duo, much less as a trio. So it was a pleasure for me to watch this movie just on the thing of seeing those three actors who I all adore, all three of them separately, working together. That was kind of a treat.
Yeah, that's why Paul and I were going to do a couple of these first Harrison Ford movies, by ourselves, because we're like, well, who are we going to get to watch Love? But as soon as I started watching this, I was like, I gotta show this to Steve and find out what he thinks of this, because it's fascinating.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I mean, Elaine May, amazingly, she really should have been in every movie.
She's got that great voice that's just like, Harry. Listen to me, Harry.
Yeah.
We're going to discuss. And then she can get shrill and emotional, but she starts from that base of, you know what she does? She sounds like a really good female DJ.
Harry, our marriage is a failure. It has been a failure since the first day. I don't have one memory worth keeping.
With a slightly husky voice, totally in control of her instrument, her voice, which, it should be said, Nichols and May was a huge act in the early 60s on Broadway, and
giant of album comedy.
Well, it's interesting that as hot as they were as a team, Ann Jackson played the role on Broadway, and then they make the film, but then Mike Nichols doesn't direct it, so they just managed to avoid each other somehow. Would have been a powerhouse combo, I think.
Well, this is 67, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if you're going to make The Graduate, you should rather do that.
Exactly. He made the right choice. But it is a shame that Nichols and May never collaborated together on film, because as performers, certainly would be great to have them in a movie together, because they were such a crackerjack timing together. But even to have had a movie where one of them performed and the other directed, just to have that on film, to go, okay, here's a Nichols and May collaboration on film, but this is as close as we get. So she's essaying a character that he helped to create on the stage, and damn, she's brilliant. Now, it should also be said, Alan Arkin played the role on Broadway that Jack Lemmon plays in this movie, not in the movie at all, but Peter Falk, who Alan Arkin would go on to have a great duo with on many films, is in it instead, who wasn't in it on Broadway. So a couple of split duos here.
And maybe that's why it bombed. They just skirted the combinations that would have made it take off.
Well, right. And I don't think Jack Lemmon or Peter Falk or Elaine May at this time were themselves names that could open a movie. They were they had to be in the right project, and you had to care about the project. And Clearly, no one cared about this.
Yeah, it's interesting that they directed who was our director?
Clive Donner of Pussycat fame.
Yes, and the nude bomb.
Later.
He went on to make another bomb later. He kept working on Jack Lemmon, it seems, to do this sort of pseudo-Jewish dialect. Like Jack Lemmon was, when he was Jack Lemmon, he's just doing his thing, and he all that. I love that stuff when he's stuttering and he's confused and he's frantic and he doesn't know what to do. But then it seemed like every once in a while he kind of came down into this Jackie Mason thing, and it was like, that's not sitting on you right, Jack. So I thought it didn't work for me.
The funny thing is I felt this part is Jack Lemmon to a T. This is Peter Falk to a T. This is Elaine May to a T. And the funny thing is, they're all playing characters unlike any other character they've ever played. So I felt they brought their personalities to bear. I thought the material didn't help them. I thought the script didn't know when to stop and move on to the next thing. They kind of kept running the same jokes into the ground.
I don't know if it's the style of the time in a way. Like, suddenly there's a trap door in his living room, and underneath there he has a bric-a-brac shop. And it's just like randomness.
That's absurdism on the same level that Ian Esco might have given you, or Edward Albee.
It's no surprise you're mentioning playwrights, though, because I think that plays better on stage than it does.
Well, this is a very play-y thing. Oh, and it should be mentioned, didn't do the script, but the original play was written by Murray Shisgall, best friend of the struggling actor Dustin Hoffman at this time, and also did uncredited rewrites years later on Tootsie. The Bill Murray character in that movie reportedly based largely on Murray Shisgall. And so if you remember, his character in Tootsie was a playwright, and he had kind of these far-out ideas of the kind of plays he wanted to do. I want a theater that's only opened when it rains. These are people who are alive on the planet only until they get dry, and then they're leaving. Yeah, and it's like, what, So I think this Murray Shisgall guy, I don't know too much about him, but he has an out there sensibility, clearly.
But also, I relate this to like the sort of comedy of the time. Like there's something like a laugh in or something. I mean, it's a fast paced comedy.
You've also got stuff like Blow Up and Alfie, which are also like daring in new ways to approach film. They've been filmed comedy in terms of Alfie, and in terms of subject matter, in terms of tone, in terms of breaking the fourth wall. So you go from an era in the early 60s where film comedy is stuff like My Fair Lady and The Sound of Music, and to, then we start to get Terry Southern movies like Candy and The Magic Christian, which are weird.
And kind of do whatever the hell they want at any given moment.
All leads the way to things like Monty Python and Woody Allen and Mel Brooks. It's going to take us into the 70s with the absurdism a little bit more contained within some more well-written parameters, but they're still figuring that shit out right now.
Yeah, but this play, even though yes, it might have come from a different theater movement, wants to be a part of that. I feel in the terms of movie culture, and also wants to be a part. It's becoming happening. This free love sort of thing is starting to bubble up. And while this play isn't trying to have a three-way, it definitely wants to insinuate things like that.
Well, it's very frank about sex too for its time. I mean, they're not hiding the fact that these people are just like.
Pretty radical.
I just love the fact that like Jack Lemmon has never been in love. He's given up on the idea of ever being in love, and all it takes is feeling a woman's breast for the first time to just go, "Oh my God, this is great!"
It's almost like Navin R. Johnson from The Jerk. I found my special purpose.
Yeah. And then they start singing on the Ferris wheel. That whole amusement park scene is just bizarre, and yet there's a sort of like Caligula at Wally World vibe to it that they're going for. They don't hit it.
And the Niagara Falls scene is that's where it didn't get adapted enough as a play, because in a play, well, obviously we're going to be at this scene for a long time. I don't know if the Niagara Falls scene, How Much Do You Love Me, was in the play, but
no, because the play all takes place in one location. It's all on the bridge that he goes to jump off of, and then Paul can back me up on this. It's been a while since I read the play, but I think the next two acts take place on that same bridge, just starts with a different person wanting to jump. Isn't that right?
With an amount of time in between off stage, right? That they got married, and then there's a next scene, and they're
exactly. But you hear all about all that in the exposition is revealed over the course of the act.
Things like him having a job as an elevator operator is completely just, we got nothing.
If you guys remember the wonderful bit from Being John Malkovich where the thing was on the 7th and a half floor.
Yeah.
So you had to stop the elevator in between floors to jump out. And then also the fact that in a truly classic movie Jack Lemmon was in, The Apartment, he falls in love with Shirley MacLaine, who is the elevator operator in the building that he works in. So both those associations came to me.
But I think there's something to the fact that you said it worked because it was timed for how a movie works. And the scene where they one-up each other at Niagara Falls with the horrible things they do to one another works on stage because there's just a different type of timing called for and allowed that you can milk.
In a movie, you're always thinking, where are we going next? How can this keep from being static? Theater, there's a certain amount of staticness built into it just because it's going to be one location, it's going to be a set number of characters. But yeah, sometimes movies are better off if you're adapting a play to just go, all right, we know we're going to be static. But this one, it doesn't know how to be an adaptation of a play quite right, I don't think.
Talked about not putting Nichols and May together and all these other side steps it took, but somehow it did bring together Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round stars Harrison Ford and Severn Darden and Nina Wayne. All three, with different director. Maybe it's the studio system at work.
Is Nina Wayne's Milt's girlfriend? Is that who Linda, Nina Wayne is? She's an invented character for the movie, too. They talk about her in the play, but you would think this movie was written as a quartet. The play was a quartet, but it wasn't. It was a trio. And so she's a completely invented character, which is kind of amazing.
Why did she not have a huge career? 2 movies in, we're like, Nina Wayne is great. And next week, Nina Wayne is great. And then you don't get a whole lot.
Was she great in Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round? I've never seen that.
Yeah, she got to play a dopey, girl who gets taken advantage of by just being sort of 60s.
This movie doesn't give me any indication of whether she's good or not. She plays the Barbie doll.
Yeah, She's played for the stereotype.
She's more that in Dead Heat, but either way, she played that well, and I thought, well, certainly back in the 60s, she could have made more movies, but did not. But let's talk about the star of the movie.
Of course.
Harrison Ford.
This movie centers around Harrison Ford.
Let's play his scene real quick.
Hi.
Oh, what a tasteless thing to do.
Do you want more from Harrison Ford?
Now, let me just say, because I had told Adam when he sent me the link for Love, I said, now don't, because I told him I read the play years ago, so I know vaguely what I'm getting in for. But I know it's a 3-person play, so I don't know what Harrison Ford's role is. Please don't spoil it for me. There's no fucking way you could spoil that. Blink and you miss it, my God. But that's what told me, oh, these guys are doing every Harrison Ford day. Wow.
It's so funny. I told Steve, about this movie and he got interested and he goes, okay, I'll watch it. And then he sends me a text and he goes, don't tell me what part Harrison Ford plays. And I'm like, I feel like I'm pranking Steve right now. He's going to get to the line, hi.
Steve, go watch Geely. Harrison Ford's in it. Promise. But for those who couldn't tell what was going on in that scene, basically, because it's the audio only, you may not know. But Jack Lemmon is with Elaine May in a car, and they run a stoplight, but stop themselves, and then back to where they're supposed to have stopped, and they run into Harrison Ford's car, who then walks up and says hi.
Harrison Ford is making out in the front seat.
Yeah, and he walks up and says hi, and Jack Lemmon looks at him. He punches Jack Lemmon in the face, goes back in his car, drives away.
That's it.
To me,
doesn't he express annoyance at being run into first? Like, don't we get to see a flash of Harrison Ford anger?
Yes, we do. We do.
That's why I thought it was going to be like a full-on confrontation for at least a minute or two. Get out of the car, old man. Let me fight you. It was like, God, really? You have Harrison Ford in your movie, and that's all you're... Oh, they don't know him yet.
Now, tell me about this. Do you think it's the studio system at work that they just, stick him in this movie, then stick him in this movie? Or does Clive Donner really see him be a mousy bellhop in Dead Heat and go, oh, I think he's the guy for this?
Get me that mousy bellhop. We're going to show some range of this mousy bellhop. What else is he capable of? If he could do that.
Well, and the other thing I found really odd about that, just quite apart from the consideration of Harrison Ford himself, is they brought a hippie couple into this and didn't do anything with it. Like, they're clearly hippies.
Yes. And and I think that's all throughout this movie. They're like, please make this a little more for the kids.
You know, for kids.
Make Nina Wayne, she does yoga, this brand new thing all the kids are doing, you know?
But they commit to it so little. But they don't even have him say, man. It's like, hey man, you knocked my load. And my chick is all sort of like,
that's
got
true.
My Aquarius out of alignment now.
Although the thing is, now we're taking this microcosm of three very small things that Harrison Ford does in this movie and looking at them through a microscope. I do love the hand slam on the back of the car because I can sense a Harrison Ford anger to that.
Just pissed me off.
I feel that a lot of Harrison Ford does come out in the slam of his hand onto that car when he first sees the dent.
It was also kind of, because it was a car, I also had that sense of like, oh, hey, it's Bob Falfa just a few years earlier, you know?
True. We got Bob Falfa. We have Harrison Ford behind a car. He was not in a car in Dead Heat, so now we've gone one step closer to Bob Falfa.
Yeah.
And we have a very historic thing for Harrison Ford. A very big Harrison Ford first.
First punch.
First time he punches someone.
Throw that on the board. The Harrison Ford punch count, which we started last week, which was 0, now moves up to 1. Congratulations.
I found this awkward the way they even staged it. So he comes up to the car. He sees that Elaine May is behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And like, what's the logic that you're going to punch the guy in the situation no matter whether the woman was driving? Did he think it was a British car with the steering wheel on the left? It's like, there was no earthly reason for him to punch Jack Lemmon.
He has to punch all the way across Elaine May to get to him.
Why would you not open the door or go around to the other side? Or it's just like, it's a scene no one believed in, really. I mean, it's so terribly shot.
Except Harrison Ford.
Well, of course. I mean, I don't blame him at all, but that's the point. He's ready to do so much more for you.
He's ready.
He got the right look.
I do. It is a pretty good hapless Jack Lemmon joke that he walks up to the driver and punches past her to just punch the hapless guy. And like, of course he's going to be the one that gets punched in that situation. He did nothing.
It is great, and it is a good callback to his original thing, which was the thing that first threw him in a tailspin, which was this dog comes up to me in the park and alone of everyone else, he lifts his leg up and pees on me. So this had the same thing of like,
right.
I'm the one who gets punched just because the world is my banana peel.
But how funny is it if you ask a bunch of people who the first person Harrison Ford ever punches in a movie, a career that's going to have a lot of punches, who is the first person? I mean, people no, it happens to be Jack Lemmon is the very first person that Harrison Ford punches in his career. That's hilarious. That was worth this whole experience of watching this movie.
Yeah, you should pause on that and consider all the ramifications.
So let me round table this then. The next question we always ask. Give me a percentage, each of you. How Harrison Ford is he in this?
What's the scale? Are we saying Indiana Jones is a 10 and the bellboy in Dead Heat on a merry-go-round is a 1?
I'm saying Harrison Ford is a nebulous connotation to a person that you can now may attach to this character.
You're on the right track. An Air Force One or something. This is real Harrison Ford up there.
It's so hard to tell because they give him so little rope to even display a personality. I mean, I'd say it's a good deal of Harrison Ford, but muted, you know?
It was like 60%?
I think
57%.
I think in a very, very short compressed amount of time, he gets up to like 70% Harrison Ford pretty quickly.
I say 90. I say 90%. Scowl.
I was on the low side, but I was trying to thread the needle of like, but yeah, 70.
You got a punch? You got the slam?
Oh, Scowl and punches a guy.
Oh, Scowl,
short amount of
Scowl
time.
too. Right.
Yeah.
But he's not particularly charming or funny or even morally.
He may have been morally correct, punching Jack Lemmon in the face. He, like you said, he skipped the girl. He punched the guy. That's noble.
He was making out with this girl. They weren't paying attention either. I don't know.
He's even gone kind of Jack Ryan here. So I think, I don't know if I go 90, but I see Paul's justification.
I'll up mine to 65. Let's say
65. 65, 70, and 90. All right.
We've covered in his list of definitive list of Harrison Ford essentials. Then he covers punching a guy and a bit of a growl, a shout. You know, in the terms of does he shout or growl? It's kind of a scowl more than a growl. But to your point, maybe 90 is high because he doesn't check a lot of boxes. But the ones he checks, I mean, it's a right on. I mean, it again, in a short amount of time to knock off 2 Harrison Ford things, to look, the scowl and then punch a guy and then out.
Now, what about this? Because here's one that didn't get to develop, but it suggested the romantic, the dashing Harrison, because he's with a girl. Remember, he's making out with a girl. So he's established as that. I'm sure he wasn't in Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round. He's established as a romantic present.
Right. This is a good point.
Fredo's gonna leave without giving you a goodbye kiss.
He's not a romantic lead for a lot of his earlier years until Han Solo comes. So this is like. Romantic lead Harrison Ford that he's not going to really get to explore for a little while, but we see it in this movie.
All right, Steve, before we go, 1996.
So you're trying to stump me again, right? Because that was the other year where he didn't have a movie, but The Devil's Own with Brad Pitt was supposed to come out that year.
Oh, wouldn't that have got a December release for Oscar consideration?
Yeah.
Pushed to spring.
But, of course, Woody Allen never disappoints. So that's Everyone Says I Love You. His only movie was Goldie Hawn.
Oh, hey, the other definitive Ford list, Righteous Anger. I'd say we got that in this too.
Oh, in spades, yeah.
We got a Righteous Anger.
Certainly, I don't know how righteous it is.
Well, okay, yeah, that's righteous becomes his trademark, but
yeah, he was wronged, and he makes it right.
Anger, we got anger.
Jack Lemmon in the face.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for listening to the fantastic Ford Fiesta show, launching here, the fantastic Ford Fiesta. And Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
And check everything we're up to at themovieguys.net, at The Movie Guys everywhere there is social media. Adam, is this series going as well as you'd hoped?
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
It's good.